The wind cut sharp through the canyons that morning, carrying with it the bitter scent of frost and dust. The sky was a heavy gray, the kind that promised storms and whispered secrets to anyone who lingered too long in its shadow. Beneath it, a solitary figure moved slowly, each step sinking into the frozen earth as though the land itself wished to hold him back. He carried a shovel, worn and scarred, its wooden handle polished smooth by years of labor and longing. He dug not for wealth, nor for pride, but for a quiet reckoning he had avoided for too long. The sun, a pale disk behind the clouds, cast an almost apologetic light on the barren hill where he worked. Each shovelful of soil seemed heavier than the last, burdened with memory and regret. His name was Cal Whitmore, though the townsfolk rarely spoke it without a mix of fear and pity. Outlaws like him were seldom granted grace, but here, alone on this desolate rise, there were no eyes to judge, no hands to strike. Only the wind and the earth bore witness. Cal's muscles ached, his back bowed not just from the labor but from the weight of years spent running from the past. He paused, resting the shovel against his shoulder, and let the wind whip through his hair, tangled and sun-bleached. His gaze drifted to the horizon, where the distant line of pines shivered in the cold. In his chest, a hollow ache pulsed, a yearning for a life that had slipped through his fingers like sand. He had killed, stolen, and fled, leaving behind a trail of sorrow. But today, as he dug deeper into the frozen soil, he sought something else, a small, fragile hope, buried not in the dirt, but in the promise of redemption. He recalled her face, etched into his memory with the gentleness of a candle's flame. Evelyn Hart. The woman who had shown him kindness when the world had only shown cruelty. She had once offered him water and bread without question, and in that fleeting gesture, she had unearthed something in him long thought dead, the longing to be more than the sum of his sins. The shovel struck something solid. Cal paused, hard hammering. He knelt, brushing away the soil, revealing a simple wooden box, roughly carved but sturdy. He remembered leaving it here years ago, a token of a promise he had been too afraid to fulfill. His hands trembled as he lifted it free from the earth, brushing frost from its surface. Inside, neatly folded, lay a bundle of letters and a small, polished stone, warm despite the cold. He held them to his chest, the weight of their meaning pressing against his heart. Each letter was written in her careful, looping script, recounting moments he had barely noticed, the way she had smiled when he returned a lost calf, the quiet worry in her eyes when the storm had driven him from town. And beneath them, the stone, smooth and dark, a symbol of forgiveness she had offered without expectation. Cal knelt in the snow, letting a single tear freeze upon his cheek. In this simple act, she had redeemed not only his past but the possibility of his future. The storm clouds above seemed to pause, as if the world itself acknowledged the fragile miracle of mercy. By evening, the storm arrived with a low, rumbling growl. Cal trudged through the rising wind, the box clutched tightly, snow beginning to lace his hair. The trail to her cabin was narrow and treacherous, lined with skeletal trees whose branches clawed at the gray sky. Lightning flickered in the distance, illuminating the outline of her small home, its windows glowing with the warm flicker of lantern light. He approached cautiously, aware that years of misdeeds had left scars deeper than the ones anyone could see. His knuckles rapped against the door, tentative yet resolute. "Evelyn," he called, voice rough from wind and disuse. The door creaked open before she could answer fully, her eyes widening in recognition and something softer, curiosity, perhaps, or hope. "You came," she said simply, her voice steady, though her hands trembled slightly as she set the kettle aside. Snowflakes clung to his coat, melting slowly, creating tiny rivulets that ran down to the floorboards. He stepped inside, letting the warmth wrap around him like a tentative embrace. "I had to," he admitted, his voice low. "There's something you should see." He placed the box gently on the table between them. She knelt beside it, lifting the lid with a reverence that mirrored his own. Evelyn read the letters slowly, her expression shifting from surprise to awe, finally settling on a soft, understanding smile. You kept all of this?" she asked. "I wanted you to have it," Cal said, looking down. "To remind me of the man I could be, if I let go of the one I was. Silence filled the room, thick but comforting, the storm outside a distant echo of their past turbulence. The night deepened, and with it, a fragile companionship blossomed. Cal shared stories he had never told another soul, of roads traveled, mistakes made, lives he had touched and broken. Evelyn listened, her eyes never leaving his, absorbing every confession without judgment. She placed a hand lightly on his, and for the first time in decades, Cal felt something heavier than regret, trust. "We all have our storms," she murmured. "Some we weather alone, some we face together. It's not about erasing the past, it's about finding the courage to move forward." He nodded, the warmth of her words spreading slowly through his chest, displacing the cold loneliness that had long been his companion. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the window panes, yet inside, a fragile peace had taken root. In the following days, Cal remained at Evelyn's side, repairing her fence and clearing the snow from the paths leading to her garden. Each action was simple, almost mundane, yet infused with a quiet nobility. With each shovel of snow moved, each nail driven into weathered wood, he felt the burdens of his past lift incrementally. Evelyn, for her part, began to smile more freely, her laughter filling the corners of the cabin that had long known only solitude. They spoke often of the future, not in grandiose plans, but in shared moments, tending the fire, mending clothes, listening to the distant cry of coyotes under the moonlight. Cal began to see that redemption was not a single act, but a mosaic of small, sincere choices made over time. And in Evelyn's steady presence, he realized he was not alone in facing the storms of life. He had a partner, a witness, a friend who had offered him a chance at quiet heroism without expectation or demand. Then, one evening, as the sky blushed with the first colors of sunset, a subtle understanding passed between them. They did not speak immediately, for words seemed fragile compared to the bond they were forging. Cal took her hand gently, feeling the calluses from her own labors, and whispered, "Whatever comes next, I'll face it with you." Evelyn's gaze softened, her thumb brushing across his knuckles. "And I with you," she replied. A sense of calm, almost sacred, settled over them, as though the land itself had recognized that the arc of their lives, once marred by loss and sorrow, was bending towards something enduring and beautiful. The storm had passed, leaving behind not just clear skies but the quiet assurance that even the most damaged hearts could find a place to belong. In the weeks that followed, the cabin became a sanctuary, a place where past and present intertwined seamlessly. Cal no longer felt the gnawing loneliness that had shadowed him across deserts and towns alike. Each evening, he would sit by the fire with Evelyn, the letters and stone from the buried box laid carefully on the mantel as a reminder of the turning point that had brought them together. They spoke of dreams once abandoned, of hopes that had survived in secret corners of their hearts. And when the cold winds of winter returned, rattling the wooden walls, they faced them not as solitary souls, but as two people who had found, amidst hardship and regret, the quiet courage to forgive, to love, and to begin again. In those moments, every hardship, every misstep, every haunted memory seemed to settle into its proper place, not as a chain, but as a bridge to a life neither had dared to imagine alone. The seasons shifted, and with them, the landscape around the cabin transformed, yet the bond forged in storm and solitude remained steadfast. Cal found himself humming as he worked, the sound foreign yet comforting after years of silence. Evelyn's laughter became a soundtrack to his days, her warmth a shield against the harshness of the world. Together, they cultivated a garden, repaired fences, and shared the simple joy of a fire on a cold night. And in the quiet hours, when the wind whispered through the pines and the stars blinked awake over the snow-dusted hills, Cal would think of the day he dug the grave alone, and of the small box she had placed within it. That single act of grace had reshaped his existence, proving that even a life marred by shadows could find its way into the light. Finally, one crisp morning, as the sun broke over the horizon with a gentle warmth, Cal and Evelyn stood hand in hand outside the cabin. The world was vast, uncertain, and still demanding, yet they felt ready for whatever might come. The wind tugged at their coats and swept snow along the ground, but neither flinched. They had weathered storms within and without, and now they faced the future together. Cal looked down at Evelyn, a quiet smile breaking across his weathered face. "We've earned this," he said softly. She nodded, eyes glimmering, and together they stepped forward into the day, their hearts no longer shackled by past mistakes but buoyed by forgiveness, love, and the enduring power of unexpected redemption. The land stretched before them, wild and untamed, yet somehow welcoming, as though it, too, recognized that even an outlaw could find his place in the sun.